Aloha everyone! Welcome back again to Alaka'i the podcast. My name is Mutia and I will be one of the hosts today with Mikey.
Yes, and everyone, I'm Mikey, and today we have Thomas Kahalepuna. He's a convert from California and currently residing in Kahuku. So he has an amazing story to share with us today. So Thomas, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you ladies doing?
Doing good, just
Busy.
fine.
Okay. I'm from California. I grew up in Central Valley of California. I was not raised in the church. At the time I was a child, the general view of the church, because there wasn't a lot of members, a lot of stakes. There wasn't something that was very big in my area. And the general, people didn't know anything about it, so there's a lot of myths and crazy things that I was taught as a child. And I had a really good friend whose family was members. And I would occasionally be over there and, I'd see them playing games on Sunday. And, they were a pretty tight-knit family. And I was not from something like that. So, but I could only hang out with them so much, and my family would kind of pull me away because they were more, they were a different type of church, and they just, I don't know, they didn't want me involved in it. But I would always end up making my way back over there because me and my friend Bernie Howell, we played sports together. We grew up since we were 6 years old. He was a year younger. And we would always, meet at certain times and hang out, because a lot of times when he was raised a member, so he didn't do a lot of the things when we got to high school that other kids did, and I didn't either at the time. So we'd end up like going to the movies and just doing stupid stuff and hanging out, and that's how I got to know him, I guess, for the biggest part.
And then your friend Bernie is a church member.
Yes, ma'am. His whole family is church members.
So you were surrounded by a lot of members growing up, but you were not part of it.
I was not surrounded by any members but Bernie's family.
Okay.
His family was pretty much one of the only members I knew.
Do you still keep in touch with Bernie?
Yes, he's a big part of my life. He's the one that led me to convert.
So that's so cool, actually. Well, to all the listeners, that is something that we're going to discuss about today. I will start up with my conversion story, at least for my family, how they joined the church, and then we will go around the circle sharing ours. All right, so actually for my mom, at first she just wanted to learn English. And then she knew of friends who takes an English course, and it happened to be the missionaries teaching the English. So that's how she started to come to the English class that was taught by the missionaries, and then the entire family got baptized. But for my dad's side, it was originally my grandpa who got contacted by the missionaries, but he said, like, I'm not interested, but you can teach my children. So that's how it started. My auntie started first, and then the rest of the family followed after. It's kind of big journey if I look back again, because it's such a coincidence. Not really a coincidence if we think about it, because we know that God has a divine design. But at that time, it was kind of coincidence that you will be brought and introduced to the church. What about you, Mikey? How is your story?
So, my family convert in the year of 2000. So I was born and raised in Malaysia, and then the church back then, even till now, it's not that big as in the States. And I remember I grew up, my dad, he was Seventh-day Adventist, and my mom, she was Roman Catholic. So I grew up going to these two churches. And I guess if I'm not mistaken, my dad, he was in his spiritual journey, and he wanted to raise his family in one religion only instead of going back and forth, right? And then long story short, we almost convert to Islam, which is very common in Malaysia. And he was so ready. He talked about it to my mom. So I guess within that process, the missionaries knock on our door, and the rest is history. So I pretty much grew up in the church, and that conversion story, looking back, it influenced so much in my life because it leads me to serving a mission and even coming here to BYU Hawaii. Yeah. And for you, Thomas, is there any, other than your friend Bernie, is there any specific experiences or moments that influenced your decision to join the church?
Well, I had growing up, I wanted a family. That was my big thing. I always wanted a family. I wanted children. I wanted, because I did not grow up in something like that. So that was always what I wanted, and I probably made every single mistake you could possibly make trying to achieve that. I went through some very, I don't know, some very bad times, quite a few of them, and I would always, I always prided myself on, when I got knocked down, getting back up. And when I was about 49, I was knocked down pretty bad and I was having a lot of problems getting back up. And I'd found that when things had gotten real bad in my life, I would end up at Bernie's house because I felt good over there. I grew up with his family. It just felt good. So I'd always end up over there. And Bernie and me have some things in common, but he is the polar opposite of me at that age, or most of my life, which is really a testament to him, because he was really disciplined, really knew what he wanted, really focused, and he had this beautiful family. And I'd always end up over there, and things would happen, and he'd help get me going again, and never once mentioned the church. His family never once tried to invite me to church. Like one year I went to a New Year's party. I played in a basketball league when I was a kid, but they never mentioned the church, which is good, because if they did, I would have probably never gone back, because, I had been just drilled that they were all nuts, to be honest with you. But I was 49, I was back over there again, and I was having trouble. And I just noticed that his family that he had put together, and it was in the same house he grew up in, so it was kind of like deja vu, because he had this family. He had a daughter, and I'd coached her in softball, and he had two sons, and it was really reminiscent of his family. Like, they were really close, really tight knit. He had a wonderful wife, and we were sitting out. He has land. We were sitting out by a fire one night, and I just asked him. I said, because I was like, dude, I am struggling trying to figure this out. Like, I'm 49 and I am nowhere, and I had done well financially and, with working and things like that. I just didn't have the family, didn't have the life that I had wanted at all. And I finally just asked him, I said, what's the deal? I said, and he was shocked, because he was like, he knew I had never before wanted anything to do with it. And I said, just tell me what the deal is, man. Because I'm lost. I'm out of answers. I am out of things to do, things to try. Like, I really have nowhere to go. I had been self-destructing for a long time and had been in a lot of really bad situations. And he just told me a little bit. It's kind of ironic, because that night we were there, when I told him that, when I finally said, look, explain to me how this works, because you obviously know something I don't. Whatever this is, it's working, and there was a couple other people I knew distantly that were really good people too from the church, and I was just like, what's the deal? So what's crazy is his daughter had just been engaged to, because she lives here, and she lives, yes, no, she lives in Kahuku, and she was engaged to a kid that had just got back from a mission. So he was there. So Bernie went and got him and said, talk to him. You know what I mean? So he came and kind of talked to me a little bit and explained some things. And he's a great kid. His name's Tiger. Um, so like it's kind of wild at the time I finally gave up and just said, "What's the deal here? Like, tell me." There was a missionary right there, you know. So he kind of filled me in, and I started going to Bernie's house on Sunday. It was during COVID, so there was no churches at the ward. His dad had been a bishop at one time. Bernie's entire family that was there, you know, his brother and they would come back on Sundays, and we'd have the video service, and his dad would teach a lesson. So I started going to that every Sunday, and then I started going to meet with his dad one-on-one on Saturdays, and his dad was teaching me things. And then I finally said, let me talk to some missionaries. So I started meeting with the missionaries. I went through about 3 different sets of missionaries because I didn't want to make the decision and not until I really wanted to make the decision. I didn't want to just jump into it. If I was going to do it, I wanted to make sure I was doing it. So I went through about 6 missionaries and finally made the decision to get baptized. And that was on my 50th birthday. I was baptized August 25th, 2021.
That's pretty recent.
By Bernie. Bernie baptized me.
Wow, Bernie baptized. Wow,
Yeah.
your childhood friend.
Yeah, my childhood friend baptized me.
Wow. And then during the process, like, is there any challenges or that you encountered during your conversion? Like, how's your family or the community around you? Is there any like oppositions and stuff like
I
that?
think I was finally at the age, and I've never been like people aren't going to intimidate me really. So you know, my friends that knew Bernie, they knew of what he was, that he was a member, and I think they were just shocked that I was a member. Like they were just couldn't believe because I bet back then if you would have asked any of that, the last thing they ever thought was I would join the church. You know, my family, we don't talk very much, so it never really was a topic of conversation. They never, you know, it just never came up really. It just they knew what was going on, but when I was younger, or they would steer me away from it. Now I was 49, and I was a grown man, so they couldn't really steer me away from it anymore. And they knew, I think they saw I was not in a good place for a while. So, and things immediately started changing. You know, I started doing more. It's weird because I got baptized. I had lost my job to COVID because my company had laid people off. So I was jobless, and I got baptized. I went to work with Bernie one day, got a job immediately. Like as soon as I got baptized, I got a job. It was insane. And things just started going the other way, but there was no challenges. I think, you know, people don't really, I think when you get older, they don't, when you're younger, it's harder, I think, because they challenge you more about it. Nobody's challenged me about it or said anything like that. I had to get an entirely new set of people to hang around with just because the people I hung around with didn't live the life I wanted to live. So I guess that was challenging. It was just poor Bernie. I was at his house a lot, and there was really no ward because we were during COVID.
Yeah.
So
It's everywhere.
yeah, we were just in their house. But when that ended, I started going to the ward and met some more people, and the ward was really, really good to me.
Well, I think that's kind of a big lesson that we all need to learn because sometimes people around us are the people that we think least. So, I got a lot of experience knowing like, okay, actually the one who really need to listen to the gospel is my neighbor. But we just so afraid that we were gonna break that bound between each other. So we just like, okay, we just never talk about it. We just talk to stranger because if they don't receive it, we won't feel offended or there will be no gap. But with people around us, it's so different. What would you think? Have you ever thought of, okay, what if I listened to the gospel when I was 19?
I did think that. I think throughout my life that Heavenly Father had tried to push me in this direction. And when I was in college, Bernie was leaving school at Rick's College in Idaho, and that was a member school. I think it's called something else now. I'm not sure what it's called. And I went and stayed there for a week and just had the greatest week of my life. And I mean, I loved every minute of it. I loved everybody I met, and just let it go from there. Then there was another point in my life where I had some medical issues, and I needed a bunch of dental work done because there had been an accident, and I could not. I didn't have any insurance at the time, and Bernie knew. And one day, I get this phone call, and it was a dentist, and said Brother Howell, Bernie's dad, had talked to him, I believe, or Bernie might have. I don't know. I guess now I don't know which one it was, but he was a member, and he called me in, and I told him, I said, look, I don't want anything for free. Like I said, I'll pay you. I just don't have insurance. And he said, we'll work it out at the end. And he fixed everything that needed fixing, and it was quite extensive, and wouldn't let me pay him a penny. Just did it as a gift, and wouldn't let me pay. And at that time in my life, it was a huge thing. And again, I didn't listen, and then, so yeah, I do think back at any one of those points, I should have figured something out, because where everything else had always gone wrong or led me in a bad direction, everything associated with him and his family was leading me in a good direction. So, yeah, I do wish it had happened a lot sooner.
So, when you say about direction, is there any specific experiences or moments you have made that comes from that influences from the Holy Spirit?
uh, I really, my path, like, I it's hard to describe. I made some really bad decisions my entire life. So just me doing this, because I grew up in a small town, so people knew me forever.
Okay.
Were just shocked. They would not have ever guessed that I would have done this. And then, like, I spoke at our ward back home, and then I ended up speaking. They asked me to speak to the youth, and then they asked me to speak at the state conference. And this is like a month in, 2 months in, man. Like, just the idea that I was speaking at the state conference, it's really mind-boggling if you knew who I was
Yeah.
and the direction I was gone. So I just, the Spirit allowing those things to happen, is just, it's an amazing thing, because really there's a complete 180 in everything I believed, did, and tried to do. It was just an amazing thing.
Yeah, it is amazing. I think I could relate with that when you mentioned about unexpected. So, just like I mentioned earlier, my family joined the church in the year of 2000. So, to me, back then, I joined the church because of my family. I grew up with it. So, I remember during my teenage years, I just started to feel like I'm just behind the shadow. The testimony is just based on my family, but I always try to look for my own. And then also, if as we all aware in the church, it's very common when you reach a certain age to serve a mission. And then I have two older brothers. I'm the youngest, and none of my brothers serve a mission. In fact, in our family, I think my parents, the way they raise us in the church is something like, do your best to be a better person, but I'm not going to force you. You have the choices to do what you want, which is, I respect that. And then I remember that in the year of 2016, when I decided to serve a mission, I didn't tell anyone about it. I don't know why. Maybe because people already have this idea of me being rebellious and me wanting to serve a mission. So I kind of feel like a bit ashamed. I don't know. But I remember I just told my bishop and I just told my mom. That's it. And then when I got my mission call, I remember a lot of church members, even friends, they came to me and said, "Oh, we never expected you would do something like this." Me either, but I guess I just do it. And I served a mission in Manchester, England. Even when I came home, I guess this is my opinion as a member. I guess it's normal for society or people around you to see you in different ways because people know you from when you were a child, teenager, and adult. So I guess throughout my life, there are days that I fit the standard. There are days that I don't, and then people still trying to understand it. How can she serve a mission when she's not this and that? And I guess it's the same for you. You live a different life before, and then when you decided to join the church, people were just so shocked, like, how can Thomas do this? He was this before. And then it's just interesting to see that we trying to be more accepting, but at the back of our head, we still have the idea of that person, if that makes sense. What do you think, Mutia?
Well, actually, both of you reminded me of the experience of Alma the Younger in the Book of Mormon. He exactly grew up in the church. His father is a prophet. What is something that he doesn't know? He knows everything, but he just decided to rebel anyway. So, probably if I were in that village, in that situation, I will think the same. It will be different if the person is like so quiet, never make a trouble. But it's so amazing to see someone who just flip everything and make something possible. And that is actually more believable when someone experience, hey, I was there and I knew that it wasn't good, but I chose to be this way right now. So I think that's where the atonement of Jesus Christ coming in. And talking about your story, you said like moving on from that type of life and to this life right now, not only spiritually, but I believe you're coming from California and coming to this city, Laie. It's another type of moving, not only just because you want to get over that stereotypes, probably you want a better life. Can you tell me a little bit what brought you to Laie?
After I was baptized, my buddy and his wife was really really good to me. She I mean, there's a lot of things if you're raised in the church that you're taught that you don't think are a big deal, probably, or you just, as a kid, you don't really understand you're being taught them, that I had no clue about. Like, I just, not, and I'll be honest, like, I was not a disciplined person. I pretty much I had been known to be everything in excess. I did not think right and do things correctly. And she spent a lot of time talking to me and helping me. She helped me learn how to do financial things. And one day she said, "You need to go on Mutual." And I was like, "What's Mutual?" And it's a member dating site.
The dating app?
Yeah. And
Okay.
I was like, "No way." Because I do not look
That's
like
what I would say too.
Have you ever been on a dating app
Nope.
before? So this is like your very first
Yep.
time.
Right.
And it was mutual.
Yeah,
Wow.
and I don't, like, where I'm from, and I don't want to stereotype, but members are all very clean cut. They all have the same. They all have the same haircut. Where I'm from, they all seem to be really good looking young white guys with the same haircut. Yeah, and
tall.
I'm not. Like, I am 6'7", I'm 300 pounds. I had a full beard. I mean, I had this big Duck Dynasty beard. I'm tattooed, and I was like, "There's no way I'm gonna go on this with these women that are members are not looking for. This is not what.
Right.
This is not gonna work."
Was that challenging for you to compare yourself like that?
Oh yeah, it's totally intimidating.
Yeah.
I mean, I was already having problems, and no, I don't mean problems. I mean, like, I would go to church and these little kids that were, growing up in cemetery, they get up and pray, and they'd be so eloquent. You know what I mean? They just,
Right.
Yes.
and I'm like, they say, Thomas, can you pray? I'm just like, man, I can't beat this. You know what I mean? Like, I can't. It's really intimidating at first because you don't know a lot of there's so much you don't know that you got to learn. And these little kids, it was my first calling. I was a primary teacher with Bernie. And basically that was great because I sat with these kids and Bernie would teach us all.
Oh, you were a primary teacher?
I'm a primary
That
teacher
is
now
so
too.
cute.
I was a primary teacher when I first got baptized, and I'm a primary teacher here in my ward. So she talked me into going on it, and it was terrifying, believe me. And I was looking through it, and I saw a picture of a woman, and she had a really beautiful smile, and I read her profile. She had been on a mission to the Dominican Republic, and her picture, she looked really happy, and I just remember thinking she looked really happy, and I didn't know she was from Hawaii. Because she was very vague in her, like for her name, she put one letter. Like I wasn't even sure she was a real person. You know what I mean? Like
It
I
was
was
like a catfish
yeah,
fake
like I was
profile.
totally
Yeah,
expecting
yeah.
somebody to respond and say, "Hey, nice to meet you. My uncle's in jail. Can you send me $500
Yes.
or something?"
Yeah.
I really didn't know, so I just sent her a message and just, told her her profile, what she'd written, I really spoke to me, and I thought, just general stuff, and I didn't expect a response. She responded, and we messaged back and forth for a while. And then one day I was like, after maybe a month, I was supposed to call her, and I totally chickened out because I was really liking her because she was sweet, just the messages. And I'm thinking the whole time, as soon as she gets to know me, she's out of here. You know what I mean? So I just didn't. I made up an excuse. I didn't call her. And then like 3 weeks passed. I hadn't talked to her, and her number was on my phone. And I just texted her again. I said, "You want to talk?" So I called her, and we started talking. And she would read with me, like on my lunch hour. I would call her, and she would read with me in the Book of Mormon every day. We prayed. She was just wonderful. So I started to fall for her. We started talking. She came out to see me first, and she stayed with at my bishop's house.
Oh, from Hawaii to California.
Yeah, she flew to California and stayed at my bishop's
things that you
house
do for love.
for a week. And then that went well. And then I remember that I called her before she came out, and I totally said, "Look," I basically confessed everything I'd ever done in my entire life. Because I knew I was starting to like her.
Yeah.
Okay, and I was like, I just knew I was going to fall for her. And I didn't want her to get to that point and then find out, "You did what?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
so I just basically, she sat there about 45 minutes, and I told her just basically everything, just laid it all out, man. I'm talking push Billy in the third grade all the way to just everything possible. And when we were done, she said, "Okay." And she goes, "So did any of that happen since you've been baptized?" And I said, "No, it was all before I got baptized." And she said, "Okay, well then it doesn't matter." And that's a great sentiment. Like, people will say that, but not everybody means that. You know what I mean? Like, they still will look at you like you're what, and she never ever did. And she came out and stayed with my bishop. It went well. And then I came here to Kahuku and stayed with her bishop for a week and met her family, which was really important. And it was like, I wanted the family. You know what I mean? I didn't have that. My family is the polar opposite of the families here. Okay, it's just, my family is like dog eat dog. You know what I mean? Like, kill or be killed. And it's just, all of it's so new to me. And she has this wonderful family. I mean, met them, stayed with her bishop. Then she came out, stayed with me again. And then when I came out the fourth time the fourth time we were together, I came out, I proposed. And she said yes, and we were going to get sealed. I was getting my See, this is gonna sound so bad because I don't remember the word. Because as you guys have heard it your whole life. What is it you got to do?
Did you get patriarchal blessings?
No, what you got to do to go to the temple to get sealed. You have to be
Endowed.
Thank you.
Endowed, yeah.
So my endowment was coming up, and she came out for my endowment, and so did her bishop. Her bishop, at his house I'd stayed at. Him and his wife came out to California, stayed with Bernie in his house, and went to my endowment. You know, her bishop has been so cool. Like, I consider him probably my best friend here. And so we went through the endowment, and we I got endowed, and we went that weekend. We went and stayed. We went into a bunch of temples. Went to San Diego, Newport, LA, and then we set a date for December 3rd. And then I moved out here that November 24th. And we ended up getting sealed December 3rd.
Wow, what a journey.
Yeah.
What a journey.
It's been amazing because there's things have come up. It hasn't been like when I landed here November 24th, I had COVID. Like I landed on the plane, dude, and her dad, who I just love, and I love her mom and dad. Man, they're really, really good people. And her dad, the first time was real, didn't say much to me. The second time, he talked a little more. Well, this time I was coming out to marry his daughter, so I remember I landed and he came up, he gave me a hug, and I was like, that was so cool, right? And I was so happy. And we go back into her room, and I hadn't been feeling well, and he just hugged me. You know what I mean? And yeah, you got COVID. So we had to go out there and say, hey, Tom's got COVID. Thomas has got COVID. So I had COVID, and we were supposed to get sealed like 7-9 days later, or something like that. So you have to be alone, or you have to be segregated. So we were segregated for the whole time. She never got it, and it well worked out. But it was a trip,
Yeah. And other than friendship, finding love, and the support from the community, are there any particular values or beliefs within the church that you find really meaningful?
Just the family thing, just the closeness, the praying together. I mean, there's so much stuff when you're not a member. I remember when I first started talking to Bernie's dad, there were some things the two things that really shocked me. I mean, like left me speechless. One was that it started in New York, because I always thought it started in Utah.
Yeah.
So that was wrong.
Yeah.
And the second was that nobody got paid. Like, you got to understand.
Yeah.
I've never been associated. Like, I had become jaded toward churches because it's all financial. It was really depressing. And once you would get in, they just abandon you. And like these people do this all. And when somebody's doing something, not getting paid for it, that means they genuinely believe it and they have a love for it. You know what I mean? And it blew me away, because it's a big commitment. And so those were those things, and then, like I said, the families, going to the temple, just the whole love thing, and just, eternal family. I'm real bad at terms because I've only been doing this a year, and it's when everything's so different, but just the closeness of it and the love involved in it, and then the sharing and doing for others, helping, serving, things of that nature. It's like I said, it was the exact opposite of the way I was living, and it's been great, and I don't know, I'm just babbling, but it's crazy because things would come up along the way, and every time something would come up, it would be that I was like, oh, this is going to be like, I had a job back home. I had no clue where I worked had an office here. Like, I went to my boss and said, hey, I'm going to be leaving in December because I'm going to move to Hawaii, to Oahu. He's like, why don't you just transfer? I was like, what? He's like, yeah, dude, you just transfer. And I was like, wow. Just things like that. Like, every time something, obstacle would come up, it would be answered. And I mean, that's the first time in my life that's been like that. Because usually, if one obstacle came up, there was another one, and I'd beat my head against the wall and fall, and just it'd be a disaster. So it's, I mean, to me, there's no question. I am doing the right thing because everything just means something and fits and works out. And it's 49 years of living the other way. It's eye-opening. So like I have no doubts in what I did and no doubts on what I believe. I mean, I have no regrets about any of it. Like I said earlier, I wish I had done it sooner. I would have loved to have met my wife when I was 21, instead of 50, 51. But, I'm here now, so I'm very grateful for the whole thing.
Well, I truly believe that everything happens for a reason, and whatever decisions that we've made in our life, it will lead to something else.
Right. Well, anyway, to close up everything, I would like for all the listeners, especially for the young one, we sometimes have embarrassment about changing because what we did in the past. So, what is something that you would say to them if you see them?
For myself, when I was younger, I didn't think in the lines of what was best for me as far as more like what people would think of me, maybe, and it was always, I wanted to be seen a certain way. I wanted to carry myself a certain way. I wanted to be known as a certain thing. And that really was a handicap, I think. That kept me from being able to do something like this because, like I said, where I'm from, at that time, it would have been like people wouldn't understand it, and they wouldn't have believed it. And it's just when you finally start thinking and looking at it about like what it actually does for you and your heart and what's really important, it just became a lot easier to, I guess, ego. Just a lot of it's ego. It's getting rid of your ego and being able to just totally submit to something, I think. That makes sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Thomas, thank you so much for sharing your amazing journey with us, and also to Mutia. Thank you for always being a good friend to me.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah. And yes, and to all our listeners, and if you have any stories that you would like to share with us and for our community, please reach out to Alaka'i News, and yeah, we'll see you next time.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.